The second part of this problem is a very practical one, and that is to use the information calculated in the first part to find how many bags of peat moss I need to buy if I'm going to cover my garden. So I go to Menards and how many bags am I going to pick up? Here are the parameters of the problem. I need to cover an area 15 feet by 20 feet to a depth of 3 inches. I first want to point out that there's a couple of ways of doing this problem. One is to convert to number of bags of peat moss using the mass, and the other is to convert using the volume. I'm going to use the mass, and I invite you to do the problem the other way. First thing I'm going to do is write down all the equivalence relations that I need to solve this problem. And something I want to illustrate here is that I can, looking ahead, what is my final answer that I want to find out? What I want to find out is number of bags of peat moss. And the thing I can illustrate here is I can define my own units. And specifically, my unit here is, I'm going to define a unit of bags. So here's 1 bag of peat moss is equivalent to 40 pounds of peat moss. That's something that was given in, that was used in the last problem. Other things that I'm going to need the density that I calculated from part A. And recall that was 0.1318 grams of peat moss was equivalent to 1 milliliter of peat moss, because I found that the density was 0.1318 grams per milliliter. When considering the area that I need to cover, notice that I have this area given, the area I need to cover given dimensions in feet. Well, to get it into the same dimensions that I need for converting from the density, I'm going to need to turn those feet into centimeters. And the two things I know, I could use it directly, but I know off the top of my head that 1 foot is 12 inches. And I also know that 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. And this is one that should go without saying, but a milliliter is the same thing as a cubic centimeter. I'll write that as a formal conversion factor. And finally, the conversion between pounds and grams. I can do the problem just using this particular set of equivalence relations. For the first part of the problem, I'm going to calculate the volume required in milliliters. And so what I see here is I have a rectangular area, 15 feet by 20 feet, to a depth of 3 inches, and volume is essentially, of a rectangular solid, is essentially what I get by multiplying those three together. So these three dimensions, 15 feet, 20 feet, 3 inches. Keep careful track of units. Notice I have different units for the depth than I do for the dimensions of the rectangular area. What I want to do is, so first I'm going to do this in 2 steps. First I'm going to convert these feet into inches with this conversion factor. 1 foot is 12 inches, and I need it twice because there's 2 units of feet there. And so I'm going to 1 foot, 12 inches squared. The feet are going to cancel as units. Excuse me, I didn't mean to cross off the 20. The feet are going to cancel as units, and I'm going to be left with inches times inches times inches. 2 from here, 2 from here, 1 from here. And then I need to convert those inches into centimeters. 2.54 centimeters is 1 inch. Here's my conversion factor. I do that 3 times and I'll have centimeters cubed. And then all the inches will cancel, and I'll be in cubic centimeters. And then I use the fact that 1 cubic centimeter is the same as a milliliter. Collecting all the numbers and doing the appropriate cancellation of units, I'm left with units of milliliters, and the calculation shown here, 2.124 times 10 to the 6th milliliters. And that's milliliters specifically of peat moss. Now I understand that I have milliliters of peat moss, and I want to, in the end, I have milliliters of peat moss, and in the end I want to get bags of peat moss. So I use the equivalencies that I have written above, and this comes from the density of peat moss. 1 milliliter is the same as 0.1318 grams. 0.131, and that's going to turn the milliliters of peat moss into grams of peat moss. 453.6 grams is the same as 1 pound. And then now I'm in pounds. And finally, I know that 40 pounds constitutes 1 bag. So pounds of peat moss cancels. I'm left with bags of peat moss. These are the numbers these are the numbers and the units. I carry out the calculation to 3 significant figures. I have 15.4, and so the answer, the practical answer I get, whether I care about having a little bit too, whether I want a little bit too much or if or a little bit on the light side, I'm going to pick up either 15 or 16 bags of peat moss.